What's going on, people? This is Shok, and let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room first. Yeah, I got a crap load of hair now. Start growing it out. I want to say like shortly after that last video I uploaded, the random Sonic 2 movie review that I did. Um, but yeah, I dig it, and honestly, I don't really see myself going back to Wave Shok. So Wave Shok is more than likely dead. Just letting you guys know that right now. But there's a lot to talk about, honestly, and it's kind of made me want to get back to doing videos again. Now, slow down. That's not me saying that I'm going to come back full time, full force like I used to be. But at the very least, starting with next year, I would like to start putting out some semi-consistent content. So let's see what happens with that. But gaming currently sucks, y'all. It's terrible. It's trash. Now, I already know that a lot of people are, instantly diving for their keyboards. But Shokio, there's this game that came out and this game that came out that are good games. And yeah, I get it, but that's not the point. There are going to be good games in every generation. You're not making an argument. To say that gaming has fallen off or gaming is weaker than it used to be, that's not inadvertently implying that there aren't any good games. There's plenty of great games still made, all right? We just got Elden Ring not so long ago, one of the best well-crafted games of all time, in my opinion. You know, we got some other bangers. We had Astrobot that just came out, Unexpected 94 on Metacritic, but I'll talk about games like that a little bit later. I just want to go ahead and get out the way. I'm acknowledging every generation has its banger. So what am I talking about then? If there's still great games coming out, how could I say that gaming is cooked? For those who may be new to my channel, 10 years ago, yes, literally 10 years ago, a decade, I uploaded a video titled Why This Generation Will Be the Worst. And I did this video going into the PS4 and the Xbox One generation. The Wii U had already been out for a year at that time. And essentially the short of it, I recommend you go watch the video, but if you don't want to spend the time, and that's fine if you don't, I don't blame you. I don't like going back and watching my past content either. Like, I hate seeing my younger self, my younger voice and all that. Like, I'd be cringing at some of the content, but I'd be spitting though. Younger Shok has always spat. That's one thing that's been consistent about me. But anyways, yeah, the short of that video was this generation will be the worst because gamers supported a lot of bullcrap in the 7th generation, that being the generation of the 360, PS3, and Wii, for those that don't know the gens. We support things like on-disc DLC, right? Capcom was like a big perpetrator of this crime. You know, they would release content that's already on the disc and charge you to essentially unlock it as DLC, although the content wasn't downloadable because it was already on disc. So you can't even call it DLC technically, right? You know, microtransactions started going pretty moderately towards the end of last generation, pretty heavy, honestly, I'd say. And, we started getting more free-to-play games. There's always been free-to-play games. They've always been there, but it started, like, ramping up a lot during the end of the 7th generation. So basically, long story short, I was saying that, hey, man, these devs are getting, like, very money-hungry. They are getting incredibly greedy. And every step of the way, gamers really haven't done anything to deter them from these new mechanisms that they've... And every step of the way, gamers haven't really done anything to deter them from implementing these mechanisms that we're now having to deal with in the gaming industry. And believe it or not, and this is going to sound crazy to a lot of y'all, but I got a lot of flack on that video. I'm not making this up. A lot of the newer comments you'll see are saying that I'm right, of course, but go back to the original comments when I first uploaded the video. I got a lot of crap for it. A lot of people that are from this Crumb side community, you know, like, I'm not gonna say names, fuck it, but a lot of people in the Crumb side, pretty much all of them, almost every single individual, if you think of them, yes, there's a 90% chance they were one of them, gave me crap for it. And I got tons of video responses and stuff like that, and people were saying that I was just feeling pessimistic about gaming because Nintendo blundered with the Wii U. Because after all that time, after all that content and videos I've done, and after all the stuff I've been right about, for some reason, people thought that I was sitting here projecting one company onto others rather than looking at the grand scope of things. And I was called a fool for it. Fast forward now, what the hell happened? Exactly. first thing I want to talk about, overbloated budgets. And this is kind of the gamers' faults as well, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately, up to the developers. But we have so many overloaded budgets to where even if a game does sell 6 million, 10 million, sometimes that could turn a profit, but it wouldn't really be the profit margins that the developers wanted, or it's not enough to make them comfortable enough to keep that going and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Like, it's great that a lot of Sony's first party titles sell like 20 million plus, because honestly, they freaking need to, because those games are so huge. Spider-Man 2, for example, had a $300 million budget. Now, guys, if you guys don't know how big that is for a game, that's a bigger budget than most movies. I've talked about this at length since the 7th generation, and not to beat a dead horse, you guys already know where I'm going with this, but gamers during the 7th generation became absolute graphics whores, man. If any developers are watching this video, we have got to go back to focusing on what makes video games, okay? And that's the gameplay. That's how the game plays. It's fun value. All these other aspects and stuff are great, and they can definitely add to the overall quality of the game. But when we are so focused on visual fidelity to the point where our games' performance is suffering, the gameplay, the controls, whatever other element, because you got to remember, these are limited budgets, y'all. They can't just, if they have 50% of the budget, 75% of the budget on, the visuals and all that, then the 25% that's left is for all the other elements of a game. And there's a lot of elements that go into a game, y'all. It's the gameplay, the controls, the fine-tuning with all that, and the polish. Of course, the visuals, the animation work, AI. There's so much. Level design, sound design. Sound design is so underrated, by the way. Put more money into that by all means. Shit. I'm just tired of the focus on visuals, and I feel like games as a whole in general are partly suffering because of that. But these budgets will go down a lot, developers, and you won't have to sell nearly as many copies to make your targeted profit margins if you just tone down this just unyielding, almost obsessive at this point, both from a developer's and gamer standpoint. It's like both sides are just completely obsessed with, we gotta make sure it's the best looking game ever. You don't need to do all that. It's crazy that it's 2024. We have this hardware, this modern hardware in this day and age. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have thought that we'd be getting everything like 4K, 60 frames per second by now. And maybe we very well could, if these developers weren't just so obsessed with making sure that we could see the dirt underneath our characters' fingernails and the sweat coming out of the pores of their skin. I don't get it, man. Another very obvious thing that has happened to gaming that I feel like people don't really talk about is the suits. It feels like the suits have gotten their hands deeper into our games now. Back in the day, it really felt like video games, for the most part, were a bunch of nerds just making stuff. You know what I mean? Making their passions, just making things for fun. These things being a video game were first, right? And then it being a product was second. Nowadays, it feels like there's a higher portion of games, a higher percentage, that kind of feel like they're first and foremost made to be a money-making product versus being a fun video game. And what's an example of what I mean by these suits have their hands, their grummy little greedy fingers deeper into our video games? Well, a very obvious example of that would be microtransactions. That's kind of segueing into the next thing, and that's how gamers are being psychologically exploited. Psychology needs to be more of a focus in studies, especially in high school and going into college, man, because I feel like if people were more aware of human psychology and how people use it, particularly corporations, and how they use it for marketing and selling products and stuff like that, I feel like people would just be more aware of these things and therefore not support them as much, right? Be able to call them out more, because y'all have to realize that these companies and the way that these games are built, and this all kind of started from like the whole mobile games, you know, like they are made to psychologically exploit. Some of these people have consultants for this stuff. They are targeting gamers' gambling addictions. And y'all are sitting here allowing your, like, just allowing them to do it, giving them what they want. And some of you know it, like, you know what they're doing. You know what the loot boxes are. You know what the battle pass is for. All that is to inflate their engagement numbers and be like, okay, look at all these active players we have. And also the more they're able to engage you and get you on a game more frequently, the more likely you are to purchase something there, which of course they have 10,000 advertisements just slapped everywhere on these online games now. It's asinine, dude. I am so tired of booting up a game these days and battle pass, store, currencies, and then especially when they have the audacity and the nerve to have like more than 2 in-game currencies. I mean, honestly, there shouldn't be more than one. There should only be one in-game currency, really. I'm looking at the top right corner of the screen, and there's like 5 different symbols up there, and it's like, why? Why is that necessary? Why are all the, you know, like, all these different like tabs and stuff that are in these games? And that used to be something that was mostly reserved for, you know, FPSs and like free-to-play multiplayer shooters and stuff like that. But now these battle pass and free-to-play models have kind of infiltrated the fighting game sector now. And now Tekken has a battle pass, and there's a Tekken store, and there's a, you know, Mortal Kombat store, and I think inherently there's nothing wrong with these ideas, but in typical fashion, you know, since we're humans corrupt. We always try to find a way to exploit things, get the most out of it with minimal effort, cut corners, all that type of stuff. So of course we're going to abuse it. And a lot of you guys, I'm sorry, this is just the truth, not trying to come down on anyone, not trying to necessarily blame people for how they decide to spend their money. You have the right to spend your money however you want, but with that being said, you have to keep in mind that whatever you support has consequences, whether they are good or bad. A lot of you have supported things that produce some bad consequences, okay? One of the reasons why I hate the free-to-play model is because microtransactions are an inherent part of it, right? Because if a game is free-to-play, the only way the developers are going to make the money off of it is, of course, the microtransactions within the game. But also, just like intrinsically, right? Free-to-play games just aren't going to have the same polish as a purchasable title. As a 40+ purchasable game, they're just not. Is he saying that free-to-play games can't be as good as purchasable titles? No, that's not exactly what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if those free-to-play games were purchasable titles, I bet you they would be higher polished. Because on average, games that are purchasable are higher polished because they are working with more developers, usually, and more budget during the pre-release, during the actual development of the game, whereas a free-to-play model is more so looking to do more development later on. The content to value ratio is absolutely ass in free-to-play games. You'll sit here and play Overwatch 2 and not unlock anything worth a damn if you're trying to play that game for free. Any of the skins you really want, you're going to have to, at bare minimum, spend $10, $15, but a lot of the skins people really want are $20 to $25. And y'all are really sitting here on these free-to-play games paying $25 for a skin, for a cosmetic. So don't do that. You know, people can do what they want as long as it's not affecting other people. But that's the problem. There's the thing. It is affecting me. It does affect me because there's all the reason why all these free-to-play games exist and all these microtransactions and all this nickeling and diming is happening is because all the microtransactions you guys started supporting in the 7th generation. Do you get it? Your actions have consequences. I want you guys to put it into perspective. Think about how much $25 is to spend on a cosmetic. Guys, $25 could be a fire-ass game. You could buy a good-ass indie game with $25. And you could buy a really good big AAA game that's been out for a few years that you may have missed. That's $25 on Steam. Or you could find it on another launcher or a website where you can spend $20. You can buy a whole ass game, y'all, for $25. And some y'all are really sitting here giving these suits exactly what they're looking for, exactly what they're needing. You're really forking over hundreds and hundreds of dollars for cosmetics. I'm sorry, that's just crazy to me, man. I could never. I'm not gonna sit here and say I've never spent money on microtransactions, because I have. But I've never been a whale. And I don't think I've ever spent more than $100 on a single game. Matter of fact, a lot of you guys may know from Twitter or Twitch that I used to be a huge Overwatch guy. Like, that used to be my main game from like 2016 to probably like half of 2018 for like 2.5 years. Like, Overwatch was the main thing that I would play. I would just play it, stream it like clockwork, right? You wanna know how much money I spent on Overwatch 1? I didn't spend a dime on Overwatch 1, and I got basically everything I wanted during that game. You know why? Because it was $40. So they didn't make it incredibly hard and, you know, like Korean MMO grindy hard to unlock something. But now we go to Overwatch 2, which is free to play. What do we see now? If you are trying to play Overwatch 2 for free, you're not getting jack shit. They switched it back to where the new character releases are free. Good. They needed to do that, because if you guys haven't been following, Overwatch has had a lot of bad PR, and that community is really furious at that dev team right now, and people are not a fan of that game, and especially the balancing of it. But also the store is just completely just exploitative. They force these like items into bundles to like upsell you. Like, if a skin is like $10, they'll put that $10 skin in a bundle with some weapon charms and emotes and sprays and stuff that you don't care for, just to sell it for 25 or 30. That's the type of stuff that they're doing, and they're doing that in other games too. And y'all have to realize that if you've sat here and you've wailed on Overwatch 2 or other free-to-play games like that, you've caused that. You have directly caused that. Because what would happen if a free-to-play game comes out, the cosmetics are $25, $30, and no one buys them? I want you guys to think for a second. Exercise that brain, get those wheels going, right? What would happen if a developer priced skins at $25 and they didn't sell? Okay, if you haven't come to the right conclusion by now, I'll go ahead and say it. The prices would drop. They would cut out the bullshit. It's that easy. Developers aren't going to keep trying to do something, right? If they see that there is a problem and that something at $25 is not going to sell, they are going to reevaluate that. But you know what the craziest part of all this is? Y'all remember back in the day, 6th gen, 7th gen, how we used to always clown mobile gamers, right? Whenever we'd find their casual asses coming over into our sphere, our grander, you know, more streamlined, you know, this is actual gaming sphere, we would always laugh at them and mock them. Go back to your little phone games, man. Go ahead and wail for these companies. Go ahead and, you know, fork over $50 to access the next 3 levels, you know, to get abilities to actually make your character viable, stuff like that. We used to clown them for that. We used to clown the whole interface that mobile games had and stuff like that. Fast forward to 2024. Do y'all realize that we're playing mobile games now? And I'm not saying games ported from phones to console. I mean, are console games being changed into mobile game formats? I mean, look at the UI of a lot of these games. They're mobile game UIs. That's what I'm saying, man. Like, gamers as a whole, we don't understand. We don't see the reality of just how hard we have been swindled and psychologically exploited. We have accepted things and not even given them a second thought that were things we used to clown back in the day. We used to not stand for that shit back in the day, but the moment it came over here, all of a sudden it's like, oh well, nothing we can do. And I think a large portion of the reason why gamers are so complacent and weak, and they just, like, 9 times out of 10, they won't just stand up for themselves, is because of FOMO. Like, gamers are just weak, right? It's a very, to be fair, it's a very social hobby. You know, a lot of these games are multiplayer, you know, so those are like the biggest games, honestly, in gaming. So, like, I get that, but y'all gotta be stronger than that, man, because y'all have to realize, and there's examples of this. damn near any time I could think of where gamers came together like in mass and like said something as a collective whole, there would damn near be an immediate change. Like almost every time, you know, if not an immediate change, like a month later or something like that, or at least at the next game that they do, right? Like look how Capcom got their shit together. Capcom used to, they were like the first third-party company, or at least the biggest one, to start all the grimy stuff in the 7th generation, the on this DLC and all that, and launching with just bare bones games. Remember the Street Fighter V launch? Now look at the Street Fighter 6 launch. That's because of feedback. That's because they started failing. That's because their games weren't selling the way that they wanted them to. And they're like, okay, you got us. All right, let's just, you know, make good games like we know how to. And they always knew how to. It's not like they lost their talent. It's not like they lost their knowledge. They just got grimy. And they started becoming focused and oriented on the bottom dollar. And what happened? There was a point where Capcom was damn near about to go up for sale, or they were up for sale. I can't remember which one, but if I take the time to edit it, I'll flash it up on the screen. But there was a point where there was talks of Capcom going up for sale. Now, is that happening to Capcom now? No. Who has been the third-party developer to deliver the most like consistent bangers, or at least like top 3? It's Capcom, right? And that's because all the grimy stuff that they were doing wasn't being supported in the way that they wanted to. They were being called out for it. They weren't making the revenue that they wanted to make. And then the game started getting better because of that. Let's do that all the time, every time. There are other problems, I'm sure, and like I said, feel free to share those below. But these were the main ones that I feel like have really impacted gaming. Overbloated budgets. Yes, some of that is, you know, inflation and whatnot, so the budgets for developing games are going to go up. But a lot of that is also just, like I said, this weird almost fixation, obsession on just visual fidelity that needs to go. Stop slapping open world onto every franchise, every series. I'm not saying I haven't enjoyed some of it. Of course, it depends on how it's implemented ultimately, right? Not every franchise needs it. And if you're struggling meeting your profit margins, maybe, I don't know, what could be a possible solution? Scale back. Scale back. Make more single A and double A games to help facilitate those bigger AAA experiences. We have these developers that are, some of them are coming to this grinding just halt where they're doing like 1 or 2 games per gen now, you know, and like that's crazy to me because, you know, Naughty Dog back in the PS3 they did 3 Uncharted's in 1 gen. And The Last of Us. That was like 4 games from Naughty Dog. Getting 4 games from Naughty Dog nowadays would be crazy. Like people would be flabbergasted if that happened, right? But that's how it used to be back in the day. I want y'all to think about the current gaming climate and compare it to how it used to be just 2 generations. We have become so complacent. We have become so just blind, like we haven't noticed all this stuff that has creeped in and that we've like been supporting. You won't say anything about it. I implore you guys to stop shilling, stop buying these overpriced skins, stop pre-ordering games that haven't had gameplay shown, or the last 3 games from that developer haven't been good, or they've been subpar, they underperformed, whatever, right? Like, for example, I know tons of people that are excited for Elder Scrolls 6. Now, y'all know I'm not the biggest Bethesda fan, but like, let's just be real here. People are, oh my God, I can't wait for Elder Scrolls 6. That's going to be day 1. You're really sitting here saying it's going to be day 1 from the developer whose last 3 games were Starfield, Fallout 76, and Fallout 4. After Fallout 4, Starfield, and goddamn 76, you're still gung-ho, full steam ahead, excited for the next in-house developed Bethesda title? Are you insane? Now, I understand that doesn't mean that the game is going to be bad. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying don't look forward to it. But what I am saying is, at least wait to see it. Because now we've gone to the point, and it's probably been like this for a lot of people, but I feel like it's especially the norm now, like most people. But we've gotten to a point where I feel like the quality of a game, depending on the franchise and the brand name, largely doesn't even matter at this point. Like GTA 6 could come out and be the most boring thing in the world, and it would still sell 200 million units just because it's GTA. It's so weird. You guys might say that this makes no sense. Like, come on, you're being dramatic. And y'all think I'm tripping or just being extra saying this, but go on Twitter. Have y'all seen tweets about Horizon? Okay, the second Horizon game. They always talk about, oh, this boss fight was great. This game's gameplay is amazing. And they accommodate their post with a clip not showing gameplay, not showing the combat. Every single time, I'm sorry not to pick on you guys, but it's mostly these Sony dudes. Outside like things like Astrobot and God of War, although, you know, some of God of War is like, you know, kind of falls on this too, but like outside like those games, these Sony dudes will be like, oh, this game was incredible, and show a cutscene. How do I know that that game's incredible if you're just showing a cutscene? I remember that one post after Baldur's Gate 3 won the VGAs, and someone showed a cutscene of Sandman. I think it was an excerpt where there wasn't even a quick time event in it. Like, so not even a button press. And he was like, you mean to tell me Baldur's Gate 3 is a better game than this? And he just showed this cool looking cinematic. So you tell me I'm making this shit up when I'm saying I feel like gamers don't even care if a game is fun anymore. They are like legit satisfied if a game is simply cool to look at. Some of these people, I'm not saying it's all of them. Some of these people, that is literally all they need. And that type of mentality, that type of mindset is helping. I'm not saying it's the sole reason, that'd be extra, but it's helping sink us as a whole, as a hobby, as an industry, man. Because like I said, this whole like just, oh my God, oh graphics, oh, I'm gonna grab the plastic keys. Like that all started in the 7th generation when we started getting these, as we branded like movie games and all that type of stuff, right? And it's still kind of going strong. And you see that not in all, but in a lot of these more cinematic games, they're not as fun. They may not run as well. They may be not have like the personality that, you know, or the essence, the aura that the games in the previous the series, the previous games in the series used to have. Excuse me, right? There'll be more videos, guys, and this won't be the last time I talk about this topic as a whole, but that'll be it for now. Look forward to a few videos following the rest of this year, and more videos to come starting next year. But again, guys, make sure you follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Shokyo. I'm streaming all the time over there, and make sure you guys follow me on Twitter as well. Links down below in the description. By the time this video gets uploaded, I'll most likely be live as well, so go ahead and go over there now. But that's for this video, y'all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Peace.